All right, welcome back to the BrokerLink podcast in our brand new studio, and I am joined by the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Mike Smith.
Yeah, you made me sound old, buddy.
Mike was recently at the NABIP Capitol Conference, and has a few main takeaways. And so we just thought if you weren't able to attend or if you're interested in this kind of stuff, we're going to kind of give you the highlight reel. So, Mike, what did you learn this year? What's going on?
Well, some things never change, right? And going to D.C. is always a lot of fun, very exciting. And if anybody has not been to D.C. before, it would certainly be something that I would put on a bucket list. Just to see all the buildings and to feel the energy of D.C. is always exciting. And as I was flying in, I kept thinking, well, how many times have I been here? And even though it's been over 20 times, I still get a little buzz, when I land there, because what I feel we're doing to advocate on behalf of brokers and all of the customers that we serve is very important. Mm-hmm. And who brings that voice to DC? We do. We, the industry, not just the brokerage and FMO, but we, the industry, go out and we talk about legislative issues that impact people's lives, whether that's about life insurance, health insurance, Medicare, all of the above. We advocate in different ways and with different professional organizations, not just NABIP, but also including the Big I, NAFA, and HAFA, in kind of a coordinated effort to really bring the message together so that people know brokers make a difference. Mm-hmm. And that was a big theme this last year, is brokers making a difference. Mm-hmm. Why did we stress that? We know the last year has been pretty rough, especially when it comes to broker compensation. We'll get into that here in a second. But basically, who is telling the story for the brokers?
Yeah.
And many people just think, oh, they're a bunch of commission-driven people. They don't really advocate on behalf of anybody, and that's so very wrong. So what NABIP did the last year is something that I thought was pretty smart. They brought back a program called Brokers Making a Difference, and we were asked to send that out, a very brief survey to our customers, and ask them to just comment on what it is a broker has done to help them, whether that's choosing a Medicare drug plan or an Affordable Care Act plan. And what was surprising was that over 12,000 responses were received.
Wow. And
that is a wow, because, they were thinking, hey, if we get 1,000, that'll be good.
Yeah.
But what we learned was that the customers, the end users of insurance, really appreciate what a broker brings to the table. Yep. So one of the central themes this year for Capitol Conference was the brokers making a difference. And you can go online to the NABIP website and see the entire program, Brokers Making a Difference. And if people aren't a member, then we'd certainly appreciate them calling us, talking to me, and I'll share with them some of the reasons why they should belong and support their industry. To me, it's like industry insurance. You've got your E&O to protect against claims. Well, NABIP is kind of like that professional association that really makes sure that our voices are heard. So each year when we go to D.C., we make darn sure that when we go, we do make our voices heard.
Yeah.
So that said, it was a very fun trip. We had a good time. It's always great to see everybody and commiserate, if anything, and really just to help everyone understand that what we do does matter.
Yep.
And I hope whoever's listening to this podcast understands that even though they may be a single agent working somewhere out of their house, that there is a bigger industry out there that is advocating for them. And if they ever want to know more about it, just have them give me a call. I'll be happy to share it with them.
Awesome. I love that. Brokers Making a Difference. I haven't heard about that. So it's just on the nabip.org website? Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Great. We should link to that on the episode. That's great. And it's been kind of a crazy past year. As we all know, there was that tragic incident with a health insurance executive, and insurance has been a big topic in our country lately. And so I think it is important that as independent brokers, we start to show, okay, what do these people do? What is their piece in this big puzzle? Because it's in a lot of people's minds right now. It's on social media. It's in the news. So transitioning now to the topics at NABIP, I think you told me before we started recording there were about 3 main categories. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, let's start out with the employer group health. The main thing there is to preserve the employer exclusion tax. What does that mean? Right now at the brokerage, we have 70 some odd employees and we provide health insurance to them. So let's just say, quick math, 75 employees times $1,000 premium per person per month. And that's about what it runs.
Yeah.
So here we are, a small company that spend $75,000 per month on health insurance for our employees. Now, right now, we're able to tax deduct that as a business expense. And then anybody that receives benefits from the policy, they're able to receive those benefits income tax free.
Right.
So it's basically one of the largest tax deductions that's allowed outside of things like interest expense on a mortgage or something of that nature, internal cash value buildup on a permanent life insurance contract. These are three of the biggest things that Congress scores. And when they look at it, they think, how much does it cost versus what benefit does it provide? So in the respect of if they took that away, we would lose a tax deduction that would really be something where we'd have to sit back and make a business decision. And what would be the opposite reaction of that? Instead of, oh, hey, we've got this wonderful benefit where we can tax deduct it, now they take it away, we may have to drop our group health insurance plan. And then what happens? You have now 75 households that are uninsured, and they then need to go out there and buy health insurance. So preserving the employer tax exclusion was one of our main actions in respect to talking points. Yeah. We get a list of talking points, and for employer health, that was the number one that we talked about this year.
So if they were not to preserve that tax exclusion, we could assume that at least half the companies, if not more, that provide health benefits would not be able to afford to do so anymore.
We're a nation of roughly 335 million people, of which about half of them receive their health insurance through an employer plan, whether that's a big company like American Airlines or a small business like the brokerage. 155 to 160 million people receive their health insurance through their employer. And if that employer tax deduction was taken away, that would make the uninsured rates go through the roof. And then what would happen? More people would have to go into the ACA. And then
they probably wouldn't qualify for subsidies, a lot of them.
Many of them wouldn't. So what would they do then? Not buy health insurance? Or what if they did? Now you've only traded the problem, because if you don't get the tax deduction, okay, so now Congress scores a win, right? But then all these uninsured people come over to the ACA, and what do? They qualify for an advanced premium tax credit, a subsidy, and then what happens? Congress has to pay on that side, and they may end up paying more through advanced premium tax credits than they would by just preserving the employer tax exclusion. So that was our number one call there for employer group health insurance.
All right, good information. What was the next one?
We talked a lot about ACA, the Affordable Care Act. It's a well-known fact that at the end of 2025, the expanded subsidies are due to expire. Right. And people may have a short memory, so real quick reminder, back in COVID, when Congress is thinking of ways to help improve the health and wellness of American citizens, they expanded the advanced premium tax credits, and they brought the federal poverty level up to 400 percentile, and you remember some of those things. Well, those are due to expire at the end of this year. Depending on the math and what numbers you want to believe, the consistent number out there is there's about 46 million Americans that are insured through healthcare.gov. The vast majority of them, more than half, have a $0 monthly premium. Right. Why is that? Because of the advanced premium tax credits that were expanded through 2025. And if they expire at the end of the year and people don't renew their health insurance because they can no longer afford it, well, then what happens? Instead of having 46 million people that are insured through healthcare.gov, we go back to talking about how there's now 46 million Americans that are uninsured. So you're trading problems again. So preserving the advanced premium tax credit was probably the number one thing for the ACA.
Is there, you were just there in the weeds on all this in terms of the majority thought on this right now in Congress. Is it leaning towards getting rid of that, or is it leaning towards preserving it?
Wonderful question. We had an election, and Biden didn't get reelected, and Trump's now in office. And, it's unfortunate that we have to have conversations like this. Trump can talk all he wants to about replacing the ACA, but they tried that during his first term, and that didn't work out so well. Right. So the ACA is here to stay. It's not going away. And if someone wants to commit political suicide, then they'll let those advanced premium tax credits expire at the end of 2025. And then they'll have to deal with that in the midterm elections, which are 18 months away.
Right.
So
yeah, because what else are people supposed to do? It's not like there's many alternatives.
No. The whole, you remember the phrase repeal and replace from years ago? Come on. What are you going to do? You're going to repeal the ACA bull, just like you're going to try to reduce Social Security or get rid of Medicare and Medicaid. These are entitlement programs that are here as part of our American fabric. They're not going away. So you better find a way to improve, not replace the ACA.
Yeah, find ways to make the whole thing operate better.
Yeah. And, of course, along the way, you might adjust some of the federal poverty level and perhaps not give somebody that's making $200,000 a $0 monthly premium. I've seen some of that with people in their age 60s, because premiums are pretty expensive. If you haven't quoted lately, it's a pretty expensive proposition. So I like the idea that there are ways to help people pay for their premiums, and it sure beats the heck out of expanding Medicaid. Yeah. Because unfortunately, if you start expanding Medicaid, then the doctors, they don't get as high of a reimbursement. Right. It'll be even more difficult to find health care at that point in time. Yeah. So the main talking point on the ACA was just to preserve the advanced premium tax credits.
Okay, good. And there's one more?
Medicare.
Okay.
That was a hot topic. And NABIP's been all over this for about the last year and a half, 2 years. And they're doing a much better job of advocating on behalf of independent agents that just sell Medicare. The main thing there, of course, was compensation. It's no secret last year we had a lot of issues, especially around October, where all of a sudden these plans were people certified to represent certain Medicare Advantage or perhaps prescription drug plans, all of a sudden found out they were going to have a $0 commission. Yep. And that's just not very good business.
A lot of times post-enrollment, they were finding out.
Yeah, and I get it that there are certain products insurance companies might offer that sometimes they sell a lot more of them than what they anticipated, and they may not have the type of contracts in place that allow them to be able to make a profit on that product above a certain enrollment amount. So they have to pull back and de-incentivize, and they do that through making it a non-commissionable plan, and that's happened in the past, but it's only been sporadic. Mm-hmm. You get an amendment to your agreement. Maybe these 3 products in Ohio are no longer going to be commissionable. Okay, not a big deal. But when you jerk the rug out from a lot of agents with the number 1 prescription drug plan in the United States, and let's face it, you don't get rich selling drug plans, but it is a lot of work. Yeah. And you deserve to get paid for it. And especially when an agent signs a contract in good faith that they will be paid for it, to find out in the 11th hour that they won't be paid for it, that's not acceptable. And so NABIP was all over that, trying to, again, going back to brokers making a difference, that if you took that part of the equation away, where insurance agents weren't there to advise Medicare beneficiaries on which drug plan to take, you'd have a lot of upset people that were paying $5 one year and $500 the next year because they didn't have a broker to direct them maybe to change their drug plan. Well, if the agents are taken out of the picture, how are people going to go and get the advice they need? Go to Medicare.gov. Yeah, you can do it, but on your own, that's a pretty tough challenge. Yeah. So that was probably the main thing, was to make sure that we didn't have to, have these 11th hour surprises to protect insurance agents, because at the end of the day, they are constituents of the congressional reps that we were visiting with. Yeah. So they want to know about these types of things. Yeah. That was probably the number 1 argument we made, but then there are the things that we still continue to hammer away at, like making COBRA creditable coverage. Mm-hmm. Why in the world wouldn't you make COBRA creditable coverage? Or if somebody's COBRA expires in March of 1 year and they're not going to be able to get Part B until maybe January of the following year, that's a big gap. Yeah. And when we're telling people about this, they're looking at us very strange, like, how can that be? And we're asking the same question. If it's that big a deal, and it is, get it fixed. Is this a regulatory fix or is this a legislative fix? But just ignoring the problem kicks the can down the road, so we continue to hammer away at COBRA's creditable coverage. Another thing that we talked about was making sure that people can continue to contribute to their health savings account even if they enroll in Medicare Part A, premium-free Medicare Part A. We have a lot of adults that are very much alive and kicking past age 65, contributing to the tax base, in many cases leading companies. Yeah. And they have high deductible health plans, and they want to make contributions to their health savings account. Yeah. And they can use those funds all throughout their life and into retirement. And to not be able to make those contributions simply because you chose to enroll in premium-free Medicare Part A is another one of those goofy regulatory fixes that we could just put on the table and say, let's get this done. Yeah.
They've paid into Medicare their whole life. They're entitled to Part A. Why should they then be penalized from the group plan they're already on? That's just, it's weird.
Well, the last thing, and just to kind of wrap that up, making switches for prescription drug plans during the first 3 months of the year. That's called the Medicare Advantage open enrollment period. Each year, January through March. I can change you from a Medicare Advantage plan to another Medicare Advantage plan. I can take you from a Medicare Advantage plan to put you into original Medicare and get a drug plan. But for those people that did not pay attention to their ANOC letter, their annual notice of change, and they're the ones that are going from $5 to $500 when they get that surprise at the pharmacy in January and they want to change their drug plan, they should be able to do that. That's a simple change. Just add that into the language, and let's get this done so that people can make a PDP change during the first 3 months of the year. But in essence, those were the main points that we tried to stress. And when you're walking into a representative's office and you're dealing with somebody that's really 22 to 27 years old, these are the very smart people that help that congressional representative, tells them how to vote by listening to voices like what we brought to the table. Realistically, they're the ones that are going to be running this country by telling them, hey, vote this way, vote that way. And when you've got 15 minutes to make those points, these are some sharp people. But doesn't mean that they know everything about our world. So for the agents out there that are listening that think, my voice doesn't matter, you're wrong. It does matter. Pick up the phone, meet with your local congressional rep, especially when they're in town for their town halls, or go to their office and get a relationship with their representatives. You will find that they really appreciate that voice of reason.
Love it. Great information, Mike. Thank you so much for your time. For agents that want to learn more about NABIP, it's just NABIP.org.
Yes.
You can learn more about it there. Anything you want to close with?
Support your industry. If you were going to buy a house and it came down to two real estate agents, one of them was a member of a professional association and the other wasn't, which one are you going to do business with?
Yeah, the one that's connected.
So support your industry. That's how I'd like to close that.
Love it. All right. Thanks, Mike.
You bet.